Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. This is Miss Black. I'm not here today, obviously, which is why I'm making a video for you about what we're going to be doing. If I had been here today, this is what we would have done. You're just going to be doing it with a video. So just let the substitute know if you need it to be paused, if maybe I'm going too fast. It can always be paused. And we'll just get on with it. So we're going to be drawing the features of the face. Eyes, nose, lips, ears, and I think hair, Depends on how much time we've got. We'll try and get through at least the eyes, nose, and lips. But I always like starting with the eyes. So what you're going to need is a pencil, a piece of paper, and an eraser. Because you'll probably be erasing throughout. You can use one of those erasers that I gave you a couple weeks ago. So we're just going to get on with it. We're going to start with eyes. So the first thing you're going to do is, first of all, write your name and your class. This is for 4 separate classes, so I'm not going to write a class right here. And then what you're going to do is just label this paper as facial features. Oops. This is really soft lead for some reason. Facial features. We're going to kind of be learning about the anatomy of each. Okay, so we're going to start with the eyes. And we're going to be doing like a front view and a profile view. So we'll do front here, and then profile. And you'll kind of see the difference between the two. So what I usually do to start eyes off is just draw a circle, because an eyeball is a circle. So you don't have to draw a big one, just draw one. Don't make sure it's not small though, because you want to be able to see the details that you need in order to translate this to the portraits that you're going to draw from here on out. So make sure that you really are able to see what you're drawing. And then do the same thing for profile. So here's my eye. For the front, we're also going to draw, so you can just write eyeball. Okay, and then the next thing you're going to do is draw the iris, which the iris is that color part of your eye. Some of them are brown, some of them are blue, green, gray, all sorts. Hazel. It's going to look like that. Don't do it on this one. Once you're done with that, you are going to then draw the pupil, which is going to be a smaller circle inside the iris. And that is, just lightly color that in dark, because some of it you may need to erase. Okay, once you've done that, let's label them. So this is the eyeball, iris, pupil. Okay, now we're going to add some eyelids. And before you draw the eyelid, you have to decide where the inside corner of your eye is going to be. Is it going to be on this side? Is it going to be on this side? Usually what I do is I just find the middle slightly below and just draw a square. And you want that square to be, I don't know, about the same length as your, almost the same length, like half the length of your iris. It's like half your iris. About there. And then we're going to start drawing some eyelids. Let's label this. Let me look up the name of that. I don't know the name of that at this point. Parts of the eye. Let's see. Sclera is the white part of your eye. It's not telling me. It's important for artists to know. when you're drawing it. Let's see. This is kind of a funny name. It's called the lacrimal meat, which is kind of silly. That is LACRIMAL meat, which doesn't sound right, but that's what it's called. So how about that? So what you're going to do from this lacrimal meat is you're going to start the upper eyelid. Now a lot of people think, oh, I'll just put it up here. If you put your eyelid up here, you're going to look really worried all the time. And sometimes, you know, that might be a portrait that you're drawing, but most of the time when you are in a resting state, your eyelid definitely goes over your iris. Okay? Sometimes it even goes over your pupil if you're looking a specific, maybe you're looking down slightly. So, like at the angle, I mean, of the person, you're looking down at them slightly. So, if you're looking eye level with somebody and that person's eyelids are at rest, they're probably going to end up somewhere around here. So you have to go over the iris. Okay, and you go all the way to the other end of the circle for the eyeball. Okay, for the bottom one, you're going to go from that same lacrimal meat, and this one's going to go slightly below the iris, curving the opposite way. So this one curved into like what looks like a frowny line. This is going to be a smiley line. Now we're doing this lightly because you have what's called a water line, and that is right here where you can see you actually have one on both lids, but most of the time you don't see the top one because of eyelashes or because of your angle of viewing that person's eyes, but you usually see it on the bottom one. So you're going to actually have like a double line down here. Okay, here's where I'm going to start erasing some stuff. So I don't need the top of the iris because my eyelid is covering it. I'm going to keep this because this is going to help me figure out my crease. Lacrimal meat, you're going to have this line still right here. And then this pupil, of course, but your line is going through your iris. Okay? Now, for your iris, a lot of the time, if you look really closely at an iris, like really close, you're going to see lines that kind of go toward your iris. And it's an iris, it opens and closes, so it's like a little muscle. So you're kind of seeing some of those little muscle fibers, and they go toward the iris, just like so. Okay, the outer edge of your iris is usually darker than any other part of your iris. Okay, and then you have to just figure out a light source. This one is not one that we're actually looking at, so you can make one up. I'm going to put my light source maybe coming from the left here. So if it's coming from the left, my highlight is going to be on the left, which is right there. I'm going to darken where that highlight is not happening, around here. And then a lot of the time, the very top part of your iris is a little shaded because of the upper eyelid. So that's something to think about. Okay, and then we're also thinking about eyelashes. So the eyelashes, they go out, and they're actually going to curve down and up as you go. But a lot of people, they decide to draw the eyelashes going the same way, which a lot of them do. But you gotta think, those are kind of going every which way. So when you're doing it like that, it's gonna look more realistic. So down, up, but they're not making those eyelashes going all the same way, because that's not realistic. Okay, eyelashes on the top. You also have eyelashes on the bottom. Those are going to be coming off of the second, like the outer line. So you've got those kind of coming every which way as well. They're just not as long as your top ones. Okay, and then when you shade the actual eye, that is going to be like the sclera, that white part of your eye. You're going to be thinking more of how you would shade like a sphere. So if my light source is coming from here, this is going to be all pretty light, and over here is going to be a little bit darker. Just think back to when we learned how to shade different shapes, like different 3D shapes. When you get closer to the eye, it's going to be a little darker. Okay, and I think I made mine a little too dark over here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and pick some of that up, so now it looks a little bit more correct. Okay, and then you can add some shading to this. Usually that's a little darker because it's flesh, so make sure that you're incorporating that. And then right here above your eyelid is your crease, and this kind of shows you where your crease goes, like the top of your eye. That helps you figure out kind of where your eye is kind of being held in the eye socket that we learned about. So right here it's going to fold. If you think about that skin kind of going above the eyeball and then kind of into the eye socket, that's what that will kind of look like. Okay, same thing kind of happens below the eye. You still see that bone structure, and then you'd shade that also according to your light source. So if my light's coming from over here, it's going to be darker over here because this is rounded, like so. And then on the top as well. And then think about that bone structure as well. This is when the eye is going into the eye socket, the eyelid and all of that. So this is going to be a little darker too. This is going into the glabellum, right? So it's a whole thing. But we're not focused about the whole face right now. We're just trying to do the normal, like the basic features of the face. So don't worry too much about like the glabellum and all of those things. And then let's take a look at the profile view. This is kind of one that is something you really have to look closely at for the profile, but it is a good idea to start with a sphere or a circle. One second here. So let's take a look. I'm going to have this side kind of face this way. Okay, so you have to kind of just choose where your eye is looking. Let's say that I'm having my eye just look just over, just like this one would be. So what I'm going to do is think about this as my iris. And then in the iris, a lot of people think, okay, so I'm going to put my pupil right there, which, to be quite honest, I thought for the longest time, but when I really looked at the iris kind of pokes out a little bit, which if any of you guys wear contacts, that's the reason why your contact stays in place, because right here is very convex. It pokes out. And then you've got this part of this iris, the part of your eye that opens and closes and lets light come in and all that. And that's a little bit more flat. So if you think about it this way, this is the edge of the eye. Your iris would go about right there. So just think, or sorry, the pupil, not the iris. The pupil would go about right there, and then the iris pokes out a little bit. Just think about it that way. It'll help you as you go along. I made mine a little more dramatic than it needed to be, just to make that point, but it's a lot like that. Okay, I'm actually gonna have us start with drawing those fibers inside the iris. So those go out. But you gotta think about this, because this part is kind of what we learned about called foreshortening. It's not like we're seeing the whole circle like we are here. So you've got to shorten some things that are in a different angle. And then remember, the outer part of the iris is usually darker than the rest. Okay, we got that going. Now we're going to start adding some eyelids. Okay, eyelids going to go, if we made it here, it would be about right here on this one. And a lot of people think, okay, so I'm just going to draw a straight line there and a straight line there and call it good. It doesn't look too bad. It's just you're not kind of thinking about the form, which is a sphere, and spheres are round. So what you're going to think about is, first of all, your eyelid goes out. It's got a thickness to it. So your eyelid's actually going to start about right here. Like the outer part of it, this is like the water line, right? And then it curves to that lacrimal meat that you can't see right here. So it's going to curve to that. And then on this side, it's going to curve to the corner of the eye. And then the bottom one is going to curve to that bottom of that eye. Depending on your angle, again, you're going to have a visual of that water line. So I'm kind of looking down on this eye. So I can see that water line right here, which is why I've got two lines right there, not so much right there. Okay, once you have that, we can start adding some lashes, and lashes are a little tricky when you're looking at a profile eye. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to draw this and I'm done, which is very simplified. First of all, the lashes are kind of curled. So you're going to see a curl. You're going to see lashes coming from here, going to that bottom part, that lacrimal meat. And then you're going to see some, of course, coming this way. But you got to think about how the direction changes of the hairs. Because the way that those are, yeah, they're going that way, but they also go every which way like they did over here. And you're going to see little ones over here on that very outer edge. But they all don't go the same way. You've got some that are kind of crossing over each other. So that's the eye with the eyelashes and all of that. But we also have the crease and the lid, and that kind of started right here. And it sits on top of the eyelid, or the eyeball, I should say. So this is like the eyeball, iris, pupil, waterline, eyelids, so that eyelid sits on top of that eyeball, and it goes in, and then this is kind of where your eye socket comes in, and it goes to that brow bone right there. So you got that, which, depending on the age of your subject, you're going to see better. So if you're drawing like a child, for example, this I eye socket isn't going to be as visible, but with somebody that's a little bit older, you're going to be able to see the eye socket maybe go down farther. Right? And then the eyelid goes down like that. So those are some key points to take away. The pupil is slightly inside the iris on the profile. The iris pokes out farther than the pupil. Got to write waterline here. Usually that's where your tears kind of hang out when you've got watery eyes. So that's the eyes. And that took us 20 minutes. So I don't know if we will get through all of the things today. I'm going to at least do eyes, nose, and lips. So let's do the nose. We're going to do front and profile as well. The nose. So we're actually going to start with another circle. So I'm going to have you draw a circle. Don't draw it over here, it's a little different on the profile. Okay, this is going to be like the tip of your nose. So if you feel like the tip of your nose, you'll notice that it's somewhat round. And that's kind of what this circle is representing. So what we're going to do now is so this is the tip of the nose. We're going to draw the wings. The wings of the nose are those little flaps of skin that kind of border your nostrils. And usually those go about 1/3 the way from the top of your circle. So here and here, and they curve down to the bottom of your circle. And this looks really strange at first, but it really helps in drawing the nose. So this kind of resembles, if you guys have ever played Kirby, if you look at Kirby from like the top of his head, this is like the head, this is like his feet. Okay. Where your wings meet the circle is going to be where your nostrils kind of appear. So nostril is going to go about right here, and it's going to be like a sideways teardrop, kind of branching outward. And of course, this doesn't explain every single nose, but it is like everything else that we've done in here about the face. It's a really good starting point. Okay, and then just think about this entire thing as this is the top of the nose, this is the bottom of the nose. Because that can really help when you're shading and when you're adding different features. Like that. And because of that, I realized I didn't make my nostrils big enough. Okay, and this is going to help. So this is like the very bottom of the nose. This is going to take a lot of shading. Of course, inside the nostrils are very dark, so we're going to add some darker values right there. Let's label this as nostril. Oops, wow. Nostril, tip of the nose, and then wings of the nose. Okay, this is darker, so because of my light source, I said my light source is coming from here. This is going to help you shade the tip of your nose correctly. So let's say that my highlight is right here. Of course, this is going to be darker below. You've got your wings that actually go underneath, like that. And then this goes to that septum. So that's like the septum of your nose that we talked about with the bone structure. The septum. And the septum actually is an important piece for when we do the lips as well. But then this is important for shading right here, but you actually don't need like right here. But it's good to have like that form so that you know where you're going to be shading, even though maybe that's not going to have a lot of shading. So this is darker, of course, because this would be like where the cast shadow is, but this is also darker because it's like under the nose. So just think about it this way, and it kind of like turns into like a point to the tip of your nose. But then all of this is also going to be slightly darker than like the highlight right there. But all of this needs to be not as dark as this, so I need to up those values or take away some of those values. And that's kind of hard to see. Looks a lot better if you're not seeing that reflection of the graphite. So nostrils, I need to fix that. That's a little too dark. So I'm going to do that. Maybe I can shade the light. No, I'll just fix it later. Hold on. Or I'll show you guys after. I'm going to fix that. Use your finger to shade. It kind of helps too sometimes. And then that's what it looks like. Then of course this goes up into the bridge of the nose, which goes to like the top of that nasal cavity that we talked about, and to the glabellum, which was those lines that kind of go towards your eyebrows. But of course you don't see these harsh lines when you're drawing a portrait. You just use these as guidelines to figure out where you're going to shade for that part of your nose. Like this is darker, it's convex, it's poking out, and then light's hitting here, so this is actually you're not gonna see this line as much. You might see some of it, but not that much. Okay, so let's look at the profile of the nose. So for the profile, I'm gonna have you start with a smaller circle. This is the tip of the nose, and it's still kind of the same idea, but you actually are going to see more of the wings of the nose on the profile than the tip because of the way that you're looking at it. So I'm going to have you draw another circle. That's the wing of the nose, except you're not going to see both lines. So erase inside that wing. And of course where the wing and the tip meet is where your nostril is, but it's not going to be like a teardrop like you did over here. It's just going to be a line that curves in like that. And then it's darker in there. So this is where the wing kind of ends up. And sometimes you can see the full wing depending on the age of your subject. Okay, and then also like we did over here, we have this thing where it's showing us the bottom part of the nose. You're going to also see that over here, and that's going to be about right there. And this is where the nose kind of curves inward. And then over here, the very tip of the nose is going to be where that nose goes into that nasal cavity, or like the top of the nasal cavity, and the glabellum and everything that we've learned about with the skeletal structure. Now we can think about shading. So shading, this is above, so this is going to be darker, or this is below, this is above, this is below. So that's going to be slightly darker. You're going to see like parts of this line but not all of it. And this is round, so you're going to kind of shade it like so. And then add darker values to below the nose because it's not getting as much light. And then this is very round and spherical as well, so you're going to add some shading to that because of that form, that spherical form. And then I need to add some darker value right there. So this is what it looks like that way. So think about so just as a recap, we have the tip of the nose, which is like not as prominent view, not as big of a circle here, and the wing of the nose seems a little bit bigger by having this different view. And then the nostril does kind of hang out where the tip meets the wing, and then we shaded below it. But if your light source was coming this way, of course this would be lighter, but most of the time your nose is shaded this way. And then we shaded the forms, so like these spherical, rounder forms. And then that kind of goes into the septum as well, which kind of starts right there. And then it goes into the lips, which we're about to do. But so let's label this side as well. Tip of the nose, wing, nostril, septum, this right here would be the nasal bone, this right here is the nasal bone, then it goes into the glabellum, which we weren't really going to focus too much on. And then if the light source is coming from here, this like bridge, this is also called the bridge of your nose. Oops, bridge. You're going to shade that according to your light source. So if my light source is hanging out over here, then this is going to be darker right here, and then this is going to be like highlighted right here. And then, I mean, that's not a very good shading job, but I know I could do better than that, but for our purposes, that's going to be just fine. Okay, and now we're going to get to lips. We've been doing this for 32 minutes. Let's see how much we can get done in the next 10 minutes. I think we can do this in 10 minutes. So for your lips, you should have measured, like when we get to the actual portrait, you'll have this line that measures out, you know, the width of your mouth. And then you'll also have where your nose is. So let's say the nose is right here, my nose line, you know, and it's centered. I've got like a symmetry line. And then if you remember from drawing the skull, the septum is like right here, you know, with the, you know, the upside down heart. That septum is going to influence the upper lip and that piece of skin that's underneath your nose. And that kind of depends on who you're drawing. Sometimes you've got subjects that have really big lips, so that septum is going to go down and create, like, maybe that's how big your lips are. Maybe you've got really thin lips. I've got kind of medium lips, so I put mine in the middle. We've got thinner lips. Maybe it's closer to that lip, like that parting line. Either way, this is what the septum sort of influences, so I'm also going to call this the septum. And it kind of looks like a necktie. And this is also concave, so it dips in. And that's important for shading when we get to it. Once you've figured out that septum and the length of that septum, this part, these corners, the bottom corners, not the very bottom corner, but the side corners, are gonna go from here, your top of your lip is gonna go from here to the edge, like that, the end of your line. And I wanna make sure that mine is the same. It wasn't quite centered, so I'm gonna stop mine there. So this is like a top lip, very, very brief version of a top lip. And then your bottom lip usually actually is a little bit bigger than your top lip. And what I like to do is, you've got this on your bottom lip. A lot of people call it the pout. And you've got like this, these forms on the bottom lip. And so I like to represent those forms with these spherical, like circle shapes. And that's kind of like your pout right there. And that helps you find that and shade it, and it also helps with the texture of your lips. And then, so that's gonna be like the bottom of your lip. And if like you're not wearing lipstick or lip liner, most of the time that's all you'll see, because right under that is some shading under your lip. But sometimes, you know, you've got really prominent lips, you can see the whole thing, so sometimes you might need to bring that. And it doesn't quite get to there because of the angle in which you're looking at it. So I'm just gonna lightly draw that. And like, this is the edge of your mouth, and it kind of has this point that shows like your cheek, like the tissue from your cheeks, and then how these tissues kind of come together into one shape, which is kind of like a triangle. So if we put all of this together, this is where your lips part. And so this kind of changes because of the form of your bottom lip. It's going to go up over these, I just call them bumps. And then, so it follows the movement and form of those bumps, and then it's going to go to there. So top lip, pout, okay. And then the way you shade it is the most important part of drawing lips, or the way you color it, or whatever it is. So my light source is coming from the top left. Your lips themselves are concave. They go inward. So your top lip is going to be slightly darker than your bottom lip. And I like to shade it kind of going inward like this, like they're all those lines are going to one point, just because that's kind of the texture of your lip, but you don't have to do that. And then you're thinking about these ones as the form of spheres. So you're gonna have like this middle line kind of hanging out right there. And then you've got like this form happening. Bottom of your lips are gonna be darker. The bottom of your bottom lips, I should specify, it's gonna be darker than the rest of your bottom lip. And then, oh, this is a little bit too much of a line right there. That's not necessary. And then they're all gonna kind of, you've got like all of these little wrinkles in your lips that follow that form, those forms. And remember, your bottom lip is always gonna look, depending on your light source, it's always gonna look a little lighter than your top lip. And then you also want to think about highlights. So if this is my pout, my light source is coming from here, I'm going to erase like right there, the sides of those pouts. Of the pout, not those pouts, but the pout. And sometimes this pout is really pronounced, where you see a lot of shading around these forms. It sticks out really far sometimes. But if you're adding value to the bottom lip, you got to add value to the top. I'm going to make my top lip a little darker just because I've added some darker values to my bottom lip. And then let's shade the septum. So if we were to make like a symmetry line, if my light is coming from here, this is going to be where it hits inside this like flesh above the below the septum. So right here is going to be where your darkest part of your septum is. Like that. And of course this isn't centered, it looks a little bit like wonky, but. Alright, and now we're going to try and do the profile view. Hopefully you guys have time for this. If not, just let me know tomorrow because I'll be here tomorrow and we can finish it if we need to. So let me get a good view. I mean I know how to do it, but I want to make sure that I'm showing you exactly the correct way. So if we're looking this way, let me find one looking the correct way. There we go. So you've got your nose. You can see that where that septum is influencing the tissue, but before we do any of that, kind of just draw where your nose kind of left off and like this area right here, because that's important. And then remember your lips are concave, they go in. So you've got like this thing going in. Lower lip kind of goes in to the chin. So right here where the septum of the nose kind of goes down, you're going to see like a foreshortened view of that necktie right there. And then you'd have to measure out where the end of your lips are, and that kind of falls where your pupil is. If I were to guess, my pupil would be maybe right here. So this is going to be where my lips end up. It's going to stop about right there. On a profile, at least. And then this is going to swoop down. This is that corner that I was telling you about. And then this is like below your lip, but your lip actually goes to about right here. So this is like the skin, that's this part right here, is this area, but your lip is going to go about right there. And then that's going to swoop up. But don't forget about that pout. So if I were you, I would draw those circles showing that pout. And we're looking at it from a different angle now. And that's still going to be, that shading is still going to be influenced by the forms. You might still see like a lot of that texture. The lips. And then the top lip, once again, is going to be a little darker. Of course, the part is going to be a lot darker. So like this part right here should be your darkest dark when you're drawing lips, which kind of shows up better there. And I'm going to erase a highlight right here. This is kind of confusing me, so I'm going to erase that. I just wanted you to understand that right there is that part right there. And that goes in to your chin. Your chin's going to go out that way. Remember, the bottom of your lip is a little bit darker. The bottom of your bottom lip is a little darker. than the rest of your lip, bottom lip. But not as dark as your top lip. That's the profile. So if I were to label this pout, septum, you can't really see too much like the shading in the septum. Yeah, that's basically it. This is concave, so I can shade that a little darker. But this skin right here isn't as dark as the color of your lips. So this might be the same darkness as maybe, you know, the bottom of your bottom lip. But we can talk about how the different features are influenced by bone structure as well. Just probably don't have time right now. 45 minutes in. We could talk about, with this last 5 minutes, we could talk about the eyebrow. Actually, maybe I'll just do it above the eye right here. It's going to kind of go into these words, but that's okay. So eyebrows are, they have thickness to them, and not just because thick eyebrows are in style. First of all, you'd look for the top part of your brow bone, which right here would be the brow bone. Look at, remembering, like going back to the skull. And then your eyebrow kind of just sits at the top of that brow, like the top of the bump of your eyebrow or your brow bone. It usually starts off a lot thicker near the top, like the inside of your brow, and then it tapers off with this view. A lot of people just color it in, but it's hair. It's a whole lot of hair put together, and the hair kind of goes out. 1 second. Hopefully that doesn't confuse you if you're still drawing with me. So these hairs are going to go out like that, going up from the bottom, going down from the top. Profile, eyebrow profile. You really don't see much of the eyebrow from the profile. It's going to kind of hang out, same area, about right here. Thicker here, then it goes up and tapers down. But once again, you're not just going to color that in. Your hair goes in specific directions. So it starts to grow up from the bottom and down from the top. And you should have an obvious place to put that eyebrow if you've mapped your face out correctly. I think that's good for now. I'm gonna call it, and then I'll see you guys tomorrow for any questions you might have or for continuing this. Tomorrow we'll continue the ears and the hair, and we'll go from there. But these are just really anatomical and like form way, like really thinking about the form ways to draw these different features of the face. So hopefully you guys followed along okay, and hopefully that helps, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.